Hello, and welcome to Game Domain. We are continuing our Top 10 series today with the Top 10 Best Places in Fortnite Battle Royale. As you may or may not know, Fortnite's Battle Royale is a fun game mode in which you drop from a flying bus onto a large, open map filled with strategic locations with loot. Now, it's hard to rank any 10 places as the best places, since your playstyle and where the loot spawns differ, so it may be more accurate to say this is a list of our top 10 favorite places to land. Let's begin, shall we? Starting with number 10, the big tree in the moisty mire. I started, and died in, a lot of rounds of Fortnite before a friend pointed out that getting better weapons early in the game makes all the difference. The big tree in the northern end of the moisty mire is a great place to find the highly sought after loot chest. Up to 3 to be precise. The location of the tree is kind of its blessing and its curse. It's surrounded by swamp which slows you down, and there's not a lot of nearby areas to which you can run after hitting the loot-laden tree, but that also means you might be able to land here and get all the chests for yourself, while others try to take the fast track. However, it is kind of out of the way, and if the chests don't spawn here, you're definitely behind the 8 ball. Next up at number 9 is the Grove, just southwest of Pleasant Park. There's a house here that is a great place to build up your ammo and weapons. Once you explore the main house, there are several outbuildings that are worth looting before you move on to the big city of Pleasant Park. This is less out of the way than Moisty Mire, and suits itself much better to my playstyle, which is to sit on the outskirts and hope to survive the mid-game long enough to make a top 10 finish or better. Number 8 is a better fit for those of you who prefer to dive into the thick of things. Pleasant Park itself. This is a big neighborhood with a ton of opportunities, but, as the proverb goes, the bigger the developed area, the higher the number of enemies. Is that a proverb? I'm not sure, but it certainly holds true in Fortnite. Anyway, if you've been playing Fortnite for a bit, you know that flat roofs are A, easier to land on, and B, typically more rich with weapons. Pleasant Park has a few buildings that fit the bill, and I enjoy hopping from whichever building I land on to the next nearest, working my way through them while minimizing the opportunity to get sniped. From here, you can run onto a more subtle landing zone, the western shore of Loot Lake, number 7 on our list. This area has the benefit of being near the more easily identifiable Pleasant Park, but without all the heat the written name on the map brings in terms of enemies. There's a hill just west of the group of buildings here that often has a chest at the very top. When you're sailing down, it's pretty easy to check for a chest there. If you don't see one, sail on down to the shoreline village where you can find up to 2 chests. The nice thing about landing here, presuming it's not too populated with other players, is that from here you can run onto the broken down house and the little campground with the RVs, both of which can contain a chest of their own. It's a nice area to run through, and if you're lucky, score 4 chests. That's a great start by any standard. At number 6, Loot Lake itself. Now, this is my personal favorite, but I would be lying if I said I didn't notice the strategic inefficiencies of this location. You're surrounded by water, which doesn't provide much for cover and slows you down, and you are stuck on a small chunk of land with just one house. If you're like me, though, this is a great place to arm up and scout before moving in towards the heat of battle. If you can land on the island at the center of Loot Lake alone, or defeat anyone else who lands there, you're in a great isolated position. Sometimes the rowboat in the middle of the lake has a chest in it too, but in any event there's plenty of ammo and loot to be gained in the house itself. I would have loved to have put Loot Lake in the top 3, but I understand that when it comes to a favorite place to land, I might be on an island here. Number 5 is the Tomato Town area. Obviously, landing on the roofs of buildings here can provide some good weaponry. Make sure to scan from the air before landing to pick a good spot. I like to land on the roof of the garage, as I find a lot of enemies tend to aim for the larger pizza building. From the roof of the neighboring buildings, I can take shots at the pizza place, or, if the coast is clear, I can move into it. From town, you can run south to the tunnels, where you can find several chests, depending on whether or not they spawn. In my experience, the tunnels can get pretty hot pretty fast, since it's right in the middle of Tomato Town, Dusty Depot, and Retail Row, as well as another unmarked little town. I pretty much aim for this location when it's a fair distance from the bus, to keep competition to a minimum. Number 4 is the Flush Factory. Way down on the southwest corner of the map, there's an industrial area flush with flat-topped buildings, perfect for landing. You can glide around a bit and scout out the roofs for weapons, and enemies. If you need to land quickly or can't get a good look from the air, I try to land as high as possible and work my way down. There's a courtyard-like area in the biggest building, and there's a chest that spawns off to one of the sides. Depending on where the bus travels, the Flush Factory can be a great, remote place to build up your arsenal before joining the fray. Number 3 is a topographical marvel. It's this small formation or tower of rock that kind of reminds me of the Giant's Causeway, in that it's several pillars of rock jutting up all together to form different tiers. It's almost dead center on the map and is between Dusty Depot, Salty Springs, and Retail Row. Now, as is almost always the key, you want to land as high up as you can because it's always easier to work with gravity and go from the top down. There are up to 3 chests that can be found here, 1 on the top tier and 2 more on lower levels. Besides the chests, I love this location because it's in the middle of 3 named places that will hopefully attract others away, and after you get these chests, you can move on to any of those 3 areas, armed up and ready for battle. Number 2 is the basketball court about halfway between Salty Springs and Fatal Fields, and a touch to the west. There's a house on top of the hill that's easy to see as you're coming down. There's a pier that sticks off to the side of the hill that often has a chest on it. From there, you can run up the road to the house, which often has a chest of its own in the attic, or if you run around the back of the building, you'll see the basketball court for which this location is famous. Sometimes there's a chest there as well. I love this location because you can get up to 3 chests from an unmarked location on the map and still be in the thick of things. From here, you can easily run up to Salty Springs, down to Fatal Fields, or west over the river towards Greasy Grove or Flush Factory. This is a great, flexible place to get stocked up. Number 1 is the area I call the Barn Attic. In an area just northeast of Retail Row, there is a farm with a bunch of broken down vehicles in the yards. However, the barn has arguably the best odds for finding 2 chests on a consistent basis, at least in my experience. One note here though, be careful to either land on the roof of the barn and break your way through, or ramp your way up from the outside, because destroying a chunk of the floor to access the attic from the inside will likely destroy one of the 2 chests. Once you've explored the immediate area, there is a tower of broken down cars up to which you can build a ramp and snag another chest off the top, or you can run into Retail Row, to the town to the northwest, or the Lonely Lodge, depending on your circumstances. So that's our list of our top 10 favorite places to land, but everyone's approach is different. I've included several named locations because frankly there tends to be more loot to be found there, but I prefer the approach of landing in unmarked areas, finding a chest or 2, than hopping from small building to small building on my way to the final battle. If you're better at surviving firefights than I am, maybe the big towns are more your speed. Obviously, there are a ton of little places and hidden gems all across the map, so we had to leave out some other favorites. Hopefully you found our list helpful. If there are some other great spots you love to hit, let us, and your fellow players, know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching Game Domain.